The Forgotten Species. The Grand Galactic Assembly was in session when the first anomalous readings appeared on the edge of known space. Representatives from 17 dominant species sat in tiered rings that rose toward the vaulted ceiling of the assembly chamber. The Valkyrie, with their crystalline exoskeletons, occupied the highest tier, a position they had maintained for over 8,000 stellar cycles as the oldest surviving civilization. "The reports from Outpost Zenith 9 are concerning," announced High Speaker Tralvex, his translucent form shimmering under the chamber's ambient light. "Unknown vessels have been detected approaching from the Perseus Void. Our sensors cannot identify their configuration or origin." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Perseus Void, a vast expanse of seemingly empty space that had remained unexplored for millennia due to unusual gravitational distortions that made navigation treacherous. "How many vessels?" asked Morith of the Saurian Collective, her scaled tail twitching with agitation. "Initial scans suggest a fleet of over 200 ships, varying in size from small frigates to massive capital ships," replied Tralvex, "and they're moving in perfect formation. No known pirate group possesses such discipline." The assembly erupted in concerned chatter. For a galaxy that had known relative peace for the past 3 millennia, the appearance of an unknown armada from uncharted space was deeply troubling. Commander Exceltor of the United Defense Force, a 6-limbed Arthrodon with metallic blue carapace, stepped forward. "I've ordered our border fleets to establish a defensive perimeter. If these vessels harbor hostile intent, they will find us prepared." "Has there been any communication?" asked Elder Lena, the diminutive representative of the Aetheri, a species known for their diplomatic acumen. "None that we can decipher," said Tralvex. "There appear to be transmissions between their vessels, but the encryption is unlike anything in our databases." "Perhaps," began historian Quarvala, a gelatinous being from the Archives Guild, "we should consider the old myths." The chamber fell silent. Quarvala rarely spoke at these gatherings, preferring the company of ancient texts to political discourse. "What myths do you refer to, historian?" asked Tralvex, his tone betraying skepticism. "The legends of Terra," said Quarvala, their voice wavering slightly. "The stories of the human civilization that supposedly existed before the Great Celestial Convergence." Laughter erupted from several corners of the chamber. "Humans? Those are children's tales," scoffed Dralvok, the Valkyrie military attaché. "Next, you'll suggest the fleet belongs to the Star Weavers or the Cosmic Dragons. The archives contain consistent references to a civilization called humanity," persisted Quarvala. "They reportedly inhabited a blue world in what is now the Perseus Void before disappearing during the convergence. Many accounts describe them as physically unimpressive, but remarkably adaptable and ingenious." "Humanity is a myth," declared High Speaker Tralvex dismissively. "A cautionary tale invented to warn against the dangers of technological overreach. No species could have survived the convergence without leaving substantial evidence of their existence." The debate might have continued, but at that moment, the chamber's central holodisplay flickered to life, projecting an urgent message from the border fleet. "High Speaker," began Admiral Krell, her image distorted by interference. "The unknown vessels have increased speed. They'll reach the Proxima outpost within 12 cycles. We've attempted to establish communication on all known frequencies, but..." The transmission faltered for a moment before stabilizing. "They've responded, High Speaker, text only, in what appears to be... This can't be right." The linguists confirm it's ancient galactic standard, a dialect that hasn't been used in over 5,000 cycles. "What does the message say?" demanded Tralvex. "It says, 'We are the Terran Reclamation Fleet. We have returned to reclaim what was once ours. Clear a path, or we will clear it ourselves.'" The chamber erupted in chaos. Terran, the mythological name for humans. "Impossible," bellowed Dralvok. "The humans are legends, nothing more." "Legends don't build warships," countered Commander Exceltor, his tactical mind already calculating possibilities. And they don't send threats. We should dispatch a diplomatic envoy, suggested Elder Lena. If these truly are the humans of legend returning after millennia of absence, they may not understand the current political landscape. And if they are hostile? Asked Morith. The legends speak of human tenacity and resourcefulness, but also of their propensity for violence. High Speaker Tralvex raised his limbs for silence. We will proceed with caution. Commander Exeltor, maintain our defensive posture, but do not provoke these vessels. Elder Lena, prepare a diplomatic contingent. Historian Quarvala, I need everything from the archives about these humans. If they truly have returned from myth, we must understand what we're facing. As the assembly dispersed to execute their assignments, a sense of unease permeated the chamber. The galaxy had long dismissed humans as fictional, cautionary tales from a bygone era. Now they faced the possibility that those tales had been history all along. The diplomatic contingent, led by Elder Lena aboard the ceremonial vessel Harmony of Stars, approached the edge of the defensive perimeter where the United Defense Force awaited the approaching fleet. Behind them, hundreds of ships from various member species of the assembly had gathered, some out of diplomatic necessity, others out of morbid curiosity. Visual contact established, announced the sensor operator, magnifying. The forward view screen illuminated with the image of the approaching fleet. The vessels were unlike anything in known space, angular and utilitarian, with none of the organic curves favored by modern shipwrights. Their hulls bore scars and patches, suggesting vessels that had been maintained and repaired over long journeys rather than the pristine ships of the assembly fleet. They're old, observed Commander Exceltor, who had joined the diplomatic mission as military advisor. Yet their formation and approach vectors suggest advanced tactical awareness. Hail them again, ordered Elder Lena. The communications officer complied, sending the carefully crafted greeting message in multiple formats, including the ancient galactic standard they had used before. This time, the response came as both text and audio. This is Admiral Helena Stavros of the Turan Reclamation Fleet. We acknowledge your peaceful approach. Prepare to receive a delegation. The voice, distinctly female, but with a resonance that conveyed authority, filled the bridge. Everyone present felt a chill run down their respective spines. The myths were speaking. They're launching a shuttle, reported the tactical officer. Small vessel, minimal armaments. 4 life signs aboard. Guide them to our landing bay, said Elder Lena, and inform High Speaker Tralvex that first contact is imminent. The human shuttle was a stark contrast to the elegant diplomatic vessel it approached. It was compact and functional, designed for efficiency rather than ceremony. It docked with practiced precision, and the assembly delegation gathered in the reception chamber, a mix of anticipation and trepidation evident in their postures. The airlock cycled, and for the first time in recorded history, representatives of the mythical human species stepped onto an assembly vessel. They were bipedal, as the legends described, with bilaterally symmetrical features and forward-facing eyes. They wore uniforms of deep blue with silver accents, each bearing insignia that presumably denoted rank or function. The leader, slightly taller than the others, stepped forward. Admiral Helena Stavros, Turan Reclamation Fleet, she announced in flawless modern galactic standard, surprising the assembly delegation who had expected communication difficulties. I represent the United Earth Government and the colonies of humanity. Elder Lena stepped forward, performing the traditional greeting gesture of her people. Elder Lena of the Aetheri, representing the Grand Galactic Assembly. We had thought your kind were legends. A small smile appeared on Admiral Stavros's face. We are aware. Your historical records have been selectively curated, but we assure you, we are quite real. Commander Exeltor's mandibles clicked with agitation. Your message spoke of reclamation. What exactly do you intend to reclaim? Our place in the galaxy, replied Stavros simply. Humanity did not disappear during what you call the Great Celestial Convergence. We were driven out, banished to the edges of known space by the ancestors of your assembly. This revelation sent shockwaves through the delegation. The historical accounts had mentioned nothing of forced exile. That's preposterous, protested one of the junior diplomats. The assembly has stood for peace and cooperation for millennia. The assembly as it exists now, perhaps, conceded Stavros. But 5,000 years ago, when humanity was emerging as a power in the galaxy, the dominant species, particularly the Valkyrie, saw us as a threat. They orchestrated our removal from the galactic stage, forcing us to retreat beyond the Perseus void. Elder Lena's expression reflected her dismay. If what you say is true, it predates our current civilization by thousands of years. None living today bear responsibility for such actions. We do not seek vengeance, clarified Stavros, only recognition and the restoration of our rightful territories. And if the assembly refuses? Asked Commander Xeltor pointedly. Admiral Stavros' expression hardened. Then we will demonstrate why your ancestors feared us enough to banish us from memory as well as space. Our fleet is but the vanguard. Beyond the Perseus void, humanity has thrived, built, and prepared for this day for 5 millennia. We would prefer peaceful coexistence, but we are prepared for resistance. As if on cue, the ship's sensors registered multiple new contacts emerging from the direction of the Perseus void. Hundreds more vessels, dwarfing even the impressive fleet they had initially detected. The myth had returned, and they had brought an armada with them. Reclamation. The Grand Galactic Assembly Chamber had never been so crowded. Representatives from all 17 dominant species and dozens of minor civilizations had converged, drawn by news that had spread across the galaxy with unprecedented speed. Humans were real, and they had returned with the largest fleet ever assembled. High Speaker Tralvex, flanked by the Valkyrie High Council, occupied the central podium. The crystalline being's usual composure had fractured, replaced by visible agitation as they faced Admiral Helena Stavros and her delegation of human representatives. The historical records you cite are incomplete, argued Tralvex, his translucent form pulsating with emotion. We have no evidence of this alleged banishment. Your lack of evidence is by design, countered Stavros, activating a holographic projector she had brought. Ancient images flickered to life. Star charts, battle recordings, and diplomatic communications dating back 5 millennia. While you erased humanity from your histories, we preserved ours meticulously. The hologram displayed scenes of massive orbital bombardments against Earth-like worlds, fleets of primitive human vessels being overwhelmed by technologically superior forces, and the desperate exodus of millions of humans aboard generation ships headed toward uncharted space. The Purge of Humanity, narrated Stavros, her voice steady despite the emotional weight of the images. Led by the Valkyrie Dominion and supported by their vassals, who would later form the core of your assembly. Not content with driving us from our homeworlds, they systematically erased all evidence of our existence, relegating us to myth. The chamber had fallen silent, all eyes fixed on the historical footage that contradicted millennia of accepted history. Even if these records are authentic, said Elder Lena cautiously, they depict actions taken by civilizations long past. The modern assembly bears no ill will toward humanity. Then prove it, said Stavros. Recognize humanity's right to return to our ancestral territories and grant us full membership in the assembly with all associated privileges. The demand hung in the air, heavy with implication. The territories once occupied by humanity now included dozens of worlds colonized by various assembly species, developed over thousands of years in humanity's absence. Impossible, declared Dralvok, the Valkyrie military attaché. You cannot expect established civilizations to abandon worlds they have inhabited for generations based on ancient claims. We don't expect abandonment, clarified one of the human delegates, a diplomatic specialist named Dr. Elias Chen. We propose integration and shared sovereignty. Humanity has developed unique technological and cultural adaptations during our exile that would benefit the entire galaxy if shared. This revelation sparked interest among several assembly representatives. Despite their imposing military presence, the humans were offering cooperation. "What technologies do you speak of?" asked Morith of the Saurian collective, her scientific curiosity piqued. Dr. Chen gestured to one of his colleagues, who activated another holographic display. "Faster-than-light communications without reliance on fixed relay networks. Medical nanotechnology capable of adapting to any known species' physiology. Energy generation systems that harness vacuum fluctuations with unprecedented efficiency." Murmurs of amazement spread through the chamber. If genuine, these technologies would revolutionize galactic civilization. "Why would you share such advancements with those who once sought your destruction?" asked Commander Seltor suspiciously. "Because isolation has taught us its cost," replied Admiral Stavros. "Humanity has thrived beyond the Perseus void, building a civilization encompassing over 1,000 worlds. But we've done so cut off from the broader tapestry of galactic culture and knowledge. We seek not only to reclaim our place, but to rejoin the community of intelligent species." The assembly representatives exchanged glances, a mix of skepticism and hope evident in their various expressions. "And if we refuse?" asked High Speaker Tralvex, voicing the question that hung unspoken in the chamber. Admiral Stavros' expression remained neutral, but her tone hardened slightly. "Then we will proceed with reclamation regardless. Our fleet currently numbers over 10,000 vessels, with more arriving daily as word spreads through our territories that the way back has been opened. We would prefer peace, but we are prepared for conflict." The implied threat sent a wave of tension through the chamber. Even with the combined might of all assembly species, they would be hard-pressed to repel a force of that magnitude. "This need not end in bloodshed," interjected Dr. Chen hastily. "Humanity remembers the lessons of our exile. We have no desire to inflict similar suffering on others." High Speaker Tralvex conferred briefly with the Valkyrie Council before addressing the chamber. "We will require time to consider these revelations and demands. The Assembly will recess for 3 cycles to consult with our respective governments." As the Assembly dispersed, the human delegation returned to their flagship, the Reclamation, a massive vessel that dwarfed even the largest Assembly capital ships. From orbit, they watched as frantic diplomatic shuttles crisscrossed between various fleet concentrations, evidence of the political turmoil their arrival had triggered. "They'll stall for time," observed Captain Rice, Stavros' second in command, "hoping to find weaknesses or divide us somehow." "Of course they will," agreed Stavros. "But time works in our favor. Every day brings more of our fleet through the passage we've stabilized in the void." "The Valkyrie know the truth," said Dr. Chen thoughtfully. "You could see it in their reactions. Their historical records may have been sanitized for the public, but their leadership has always known what their ancestors did. And now everyone else knows too," said Stavros with grim satisfaction. "Let them debate. The outcome is inevitable." 3 cycles later, the Assembly reconvened. The atmosphere had changed subtly. There was less outright hostility toward the human delegation, replaced by wary curiosity and pragmatic calculation. High Speaker Tralvex opened the session with uncharacteristic humility. "The Valkyrie High Council has conducted an exhaustive search of our ancestral archives. We have found corroborating evidence that supports certain aspects of humanity's claims." The admission sent shockwaves through the chamber. For the Valkyrie to acknowledge any wrongdoing was unprecedented. "Our ancestors feared humanity's rapid advancement and unpredictable nature," continued Tralvex. "They believed that your species would destabilize the established order. Their solution was excessive and morally indefensible by modern standards." Admiral Stavros nodded in acknowledgement of this partial apology, but remained silent, waiting for the concrete proposals that would follow. "The Assembly has deliberated at length," said Elder Lena, taking over the proceedings. "We propose the following resolution. Humanity will be granted full membership in the Grand Galactic Assembly, with all associated rights and privileges. The territories once occupied by humanity before the purge will be designated as shared sovereignty zones, with joint administration by human authorities and current inhabitants. It was a significant concession, though less than humanity's initial demand for full recognition of their territorial claims. Additionally, continued Lena, we proposed the establishment of a technology exchange initiative, through which humanity's advancements can be shared with the wider galaxy in return for access to the scientific and cultural developments of the past 5 millennia. Dr. Chen leaned over to whisper something to Admiral Stavros, who nodded slightly before rising to address the assembly. Your proposal demonstrates a willingness to acknowledge past wrongs and move toward a constructive future, she began. Humanity accepts these terms as a starting point for our reintegration into the galactic community. Relief visibly swept through many assembly representatives, but Stavros wasn't finished. However, we require one additional concession: the establishment of a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to fully document the events of the purge, not for the purpose of assigning blame to modern societies, but to ensure that such atrocities are never again erased from history. The request was reasonable, perhaps too reasonable for those who had expected more punitive demands from a civilization that had been wronged so profoundly. Agreed, said High Speaker Tralvex after brief consultation with his council. The Valkyrie will open our complete historical archives to this commission, as painful as that process may be. With that final concession, the treaty was drafted and signed. Humanity, once believed to be nothing more than a myth, had officially reclaimed their place among the stars. As the assembly session concluded, Admiral Stavros found herself approached by Commander Exceltor, whose initial suspicions seemed to have given way to cautious respect. Your restraint is unexpected, admitted the Arthrodan military leader. Given your overwhelming force advantage, many expected you to simply take what you wanted. Stavros smiled faintly. That was precisely what your ancestors feared, that humanity would behave as they did, imposing our will through superior force. We spent 5,000 years ensuring we wouldn't become the monsters they painted us to be. And yet you came with an armada, observed Exceltor. We came prepared for any reception, corrected Stavros. Hope for peace, prepare for war, a human saying that has served us well. But our greatest strength has never been our weapons. What then? Asked Exceltor curiously. Adaptability, replied Stavros. Humans thrive on challenge and change. Being relegated to myth didn't destroy us. It forced us to evolve beyond what we might have become had we remained in the comfort of known space. As Admiral Stavros gazed out at the star-filled viewscreen aboard the Reclamation, she reflected on the journey that had brought humanity to this moment. 5,000 years ago, their ancestors had fallen into the unknown, carrying with them the spark of human resilience. Now they had returned, not as conquerors or victims, but as equals ready to take their place in the grand tapestry of galactic civilization. The myth had become reality, and the galaxy would never be the same.